Hi everyone, it's your favourite Atomic Blonde here with my weekly roundup of nerdy stuff. So, a lot going on this week in TV land. What have I been watching? So, I'll be covering in detail the Orville finale, as you'd expect, for All Mankind and I watched The Bray this week. And currently started The Sandman. Jury's out on that one at the moment. I need to finish the series and then I'll do a review, but mixed thoughts on that one. Anyway, so to start with, the Orville season finale. Oh, what an amazing season it's been. Great series. As you can tell from my review last week and being on Orville Nation and things like that, I'm a huge Orville fan. And I have to say, I think the season finale sort of wrong stepped us all. We were expecting something bigger and louder and action-packed like episode 9, Domino. And it's actually much more of a sort of classic, much more humour, light-hearted Orville episode. There will be spoilers in this, so on all these reviews. So obviously, if you don't want spoilers, then come back once you've actually watched the episode. So the season finale is all set around Isaac and Claire. And Isaac basically decides he does lots of studies. He sees Bortus and his partner renew their very strange Falkland vows, and there's a whole scene where basically to renew their mating rights, they have to get naked, run through a forest. Bortus has to catch Clyden, and then they basically can have sex, and then that means they can be partners again. So like everything with the then it's all a bit out there. But hugely entertaining. So he sort of sees this and then looks into, what's the normal thing for humans to do. And basically comes to the conclusion he should propose to Claire. He wants to make a commitment. So he does, which obviously knocks Claire for 6. And there's a whole debate with her and her girls and doing pros and cons and should she or shouldn't she? Like women do. It's like, that's exactly the sort of conversations that we have. And she basically draws a conclusion that she should. So she accepts Isaac's proposal. And then Lamar, who's a complete commitment phobe, the head of engineering, says to Isaac, are you sure that's what you want to do? I mean, you've only been with Claire. I mean, how do you know she's the one, kind of thing? And obviously Isaac is a Kaylon. He's an android, and he takes things very, very literally. So he goes to Kelly, says to Kelly, can I take you out on a date that will actually result in us having coitus, as he calls it? Which obviously Kelly's response is no. And why are you asking me this? So Isaac explains what Lamar said. Kelly goes to Claire, tells Claire what he said. And it's this great scene that she then goes down to engineering and just yells at him. And basically sort of says to him, like, what were you thinking? Isaac's so literal. And like, how dare you get involved, kind of thing. But there's like an element of humor to it. It's not just like, her like belittling a man or anything like that. But it's very, very funny. And he apologizes and goes, oh, look, I'm sorry. And then there's so everything's fine and back on track. Isaac asks Gordon to be his best man, which is obviously probably the most logical choice, given the humor that Gordon has, and he's very personable. But then Bortus steps in and says, actually, no, I'm funnier than Gordon. I'm hilarious on Moklan. Everybody says so. I should be best man. So again, Isaac's just very like literally goes, okay, you can be best man. Too much that Gordon's disdain, because he was absolutely like thrilled and flattered, and he's absolutely mortified that now Bortus has got the job. This whole sort of culminates in obviously a stag and hen do, or bachelorette do, depending on which side of the pond you're on. And obviously Claire has an amazing hen do. They're in a bar nightclub and they're all dancing and having fun. I think they're in the simulator. So basically they simulate Isaac doing like a magic mic routine, and these tassels come out and it's lots of gyrations. Again, absolutely hilarious. And then you cut to Isaac's stag do, and then like a mock-up Vegas, and there's like no atmosphere, and everybody's bored. And then Waters comes out dressed as Elvis, even like Elvis wig, and starts singing, I think it's Love Me Tender. And Clyden thinks it's the best, great things, it's sliced bread. And it's like, yeah, you go. And it's just, there's just like everybody's just, it's so funny because it's so dry. And like basically like it ends with like pretty much the stag do are asleep and they're just so bored, and Gordon's just like, oh my, you should let me do this. You should let me do this. So anyway, we kind of then, get closer to the wedding, and Isaac gets in touch with the Kalon and Primary and says that this is what I'm doing. And he describes marriage, to which the Kalon go, are you being like basically made a slave? Are you being, oppressed kind of thing? He's like, no, this is choice, this is what we do, and invites the Kalon. But he invites all of the Kalon, so that so because he doesn't quite get the scale of how many people should be at a wedding. So on the wedding day, like pretty much all of the Kalon descend on the Orville, and they have to contact the Union to say we're not at war, it's not an attack. They've actually come for Isaac's wedding, and they agree on like X amount can come to the ship, and it would broadcast to everybody else. So then we have the ceremony, and obviously they get married, and it's lovely. And it comes then to the speeches, and you can imagine Portis's speech is awful. He keeps like saying very factual things like, Isaac, you betrayed us and you wiped us all out, blah, 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 blah. Joking aside, best of luck. And then like, Claire, you did this, blah, 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 blah. Joking aside. And it's so basically Claire says something to Isaac, and Isaac says, hey, Gordon, I'd love to hear what you've got to say. So Gordon then steps in and actually starts doing a proper sort of toast and congratulations and making people laugh, and basically taking over as best man. And that's, so then we go through the ceremony. And it's just great. It's a lovely, light-hearted episode. There's lots of humor. Just really fun episode that I don't think anybody saw coming in a nice way. So if we don't get a season 4, which will be devastating, it does kind of round out a lot of the storylines. We still don't know what's really going on with Ed's daughter and Krill. So that's kind of one storyline that hasn't been wrapped up. So hopefully, that does mean that Seth's got a season 4 in mind. But if we don't, then like I say, it's quite a round, complete finish. So absolutely, yeah, lovely episode to end the series on. Very positive, very funny. So as always, do go check it out. I say it's on Disney Plus here in the UK. It's on Hulu in America, and it's going to be on Disney Plus in America from August 10th. So do go watch it. Let's get the numbers up, and then hopefully Hulu will renew. I mean, at the moment, no news is good news. I mean, like I say, they're normally pretty quick to cancel. We've not got a cancellation or a renewal. So we're also keeping fingers crossed. But obviously, the more people that watch it, the more chance we've got at having it renewed. So please go watch The Orville. For All Mankind. So this is the penultimate episode. If again you're new to the show, check out last week's review. I give a bit more backstory as to what the series is. It's a Ronald D. Moore who done the reboot of Battlestar Galactica. So very, very good writer, excellent characterization, amazing storylines. So we've moved on from last week. It's like 5 months later. So Ed's daughter, who's expecting, she's basically got pregnant, she's having a relationship with one of the cosmonauts, is now well and truly showing. And there's obviously lots of concern because of the gravity and things like that, and they need to get her off the planet, and they need to make sure that she delivers in actual Earth gravity. So they're trying to get her on the Phoenix or back home. Because obviously I don't think they'll, obviously the time it takes to get from Mars to Earth, they can get back in time. As we know, they've had loads of issues. Last week there was the landslide and buried containers. So this week, they kind of very quickly say they've dug up habitats, everybody's working together, but they have got the issue of, still how they're going to get everybody off. They've got to make fuel, and basically the amount of fuel they've got to make, it wasn't really designed to do that. So it's going to take a lot longer than basically the time that they've got. So they're still struggling, they're still trying to push through. But overall sort of quite positive and everybody's getting along. So that's kind of like, the storyline that's happening on Mars. Then we've got a storyline that's happening on Earth around the president, who was a former female astronaut. Now, all the way through the season, on season 3, so since season 1, we basically know that she's gay. She entered into a relationship with another guy at NASA who's also gay. And as I said, this series started back in kind of the 60s. So neither of them could have the careers or the jobs they wanted if it came out that they were gay. So they basically kind of had this marriage of convenience for like the last 30, 40 years, to cover up the fact that they're both gay. The president, basically one of her ex-partners left her because she was so career driven and she knew where she wanted to go, and she kind of felt she was going to hold her back because of the sexuality. So Carl made a decision to leave her. She didn't know this, but she finds it out in last week's episode. And basically one of the astronauts on Mars, when he's on Mars, comes out as gay and saying like how proud he is and he's been in the space program. So there's a lot of pressure. I think she's a Republican president, despite her sexuality. And to appease her party, when all this comes out, she basically agrees to passing a law that I think you can't be out and gay in the armed forces or something like that, which I think goes against the grain, because obviously she should be championing these things and making it better for gay people. So last week we find out that basically her husband was sleeping with a guy, one of the staff. This gets found out, and she's basically this week kind of being blackmailed with that information that if she doesn't support a certain bill, they're going to try and impeach her for her husband lying and denying this and all of that. So she makes the massively brave decision to call a press conference and basically sort of says, look, I've been lying to you, and this is why. Basically, I'm gay. So an absolute bombshell's gone off. We don't know what's going to happen. I think they basically got the re-election or the primaries coming up or something like that. So is she going to be the first? Is she going to run again? Is she like president again? Is she, going to be accepted? I mean, bear in mind she is a Republican politician. So we've got these two sort of things happening. We've got the whole thing with the daughter up in on Mars, and everybody knows about the baby, and it's a sort of national phenomenon, and they're hoping it sort of brings the nations closer together, and this whole thing going on Earth. And obviously she's an ex-astronaut, so she puts money into the space program, she champions the space program, and all these kind of things, and she's basically going to make more of a stand for gay people if she obviously remains a politician. So these two sort of storylines are converging for the season finale next week. With the pregnancy, she basically collapses and she's got preeclampsia. They've got to get her off Mars. It's a very, very serious condition. So next week, I think knowing one of you all bets are off. Anything can happen next week, but we've got these two great storylines converging. It's a fantastic show. The writing's amazing. Every week there's a cliffhanger, there's always twists and turns, and you really don't see them coming, which is great. Most TV these days is so predictable and dull. You see it coming a mile away. So absolutely loved the penultimate episode. Cannot wait to next week. But again, bittersweet last episode, but it has been renewed for season 4, which is great news. So that makes it a bit easier watching the season finale when you know there's going to be another season, unlike The Orville. So do go check it out. There's a lot more complexities going on in the show than I can allude to on one of these reviews. because I'd be here all day. But yeah, fantastic show, fantastic writing, great characterization. It's on Apple TV. Like I say, if you just do a free trial and watch it on a free trial, it's absolutely worth it, and hopefully that will hook you into Apple. Do go check it out. So I watched the first 2 episodes last week, and I do have a little correction. I said there were 6 episodes. There were actually 10. It's just on my TV when I was looking at it, it only showed me 6 episodes, but there were actually 10 episodes, and they're starring 2 a week. So what we found out this week in episodes 3 and 4. So last week we had the father that was drunk and passed out, and as a result, his family got killed. What we're seeing is this kind of box enclosure in the town. And it was basically built by the sheriff as a deterrent to say, look, you break the rules, you're going in the box. And what that means is in the box, there's none of these talismans or charms that keep these creatures away, that we still don't really know what they are. So if you're basically in this box when it's dark, you know, you're going to die, and not in a nice way. So they're saying, like, he's got to go in the box. The sheriff is really struggling with this. And he said, look, I just built it as a deterrent. I never thought I'd have to use it. You know, we're not savages. And he kind of goes to the townspeople and starts having this dialogue with them. But then the father comes over and basically says, look, I've got to atone for what I did. You know, we've got the rules. I need to abide by the rules. I appreciate what you're trying to do, Sheriff, but I have to go in the box. And then there's sort of side bit that he wants to be with his family again. And the only way to do that is to die, obviously. So he goes into the box. And obviously it doesn't end well, as you can imagine. And the guy's like absolutely torn to shreds. And at the start of episode 4, we sort of see what little remains of him. The box is just torn apart. But you know, he does ultimately what he thinks is right, and makes it easy for the sheriff as well. Not easy, but sort of appeases his conscience a bit. Also in episode 3, we've got there's a ceremony that they have. So any newcomers, you've basically got the town, which, as it says, and there's a big house called Colony House. And when you join, you basically decide whether you want to be part of Colony or you want to be part of the town. And the family that arrived last week, each member gets an individual say. The mum, dad, and the youngest, Ethan, all say town. The teenage daughter, not unsurprisingly, says Colony House, because there's something going on between her and her mother. You know, she's very teenagery, I guess. You know, she's kind of rebelling. She's like very doesn't want to be around her mother that much. And basically says, yeah, I want to go to Colony House. To which the parents start going, no, you can't do that. You've got to stay with us. And then they're like, no, those are the rules. If she wants to be in Colony, she can be in Colony. Decisions made. So the daughter goes to Colony House. The family take over the house of the family that were killed last week. And when they're shown around, basically they've not cleaned up the house. So in the daughter's bedroom and the mother's bedroom, there's blood up the walls everywhere. Obviously, to make a point about how important it is to, you know, stand by the rules of nailing the windows shut, keeping them boarded, and having the talismans at night. But still a pretty horrific thing for them to see. So anyway, they move into the house. And that's probably about it, really. The other thing is that the last week when there was the accident with the RV and another car, basically find out there was somebody else in the car who's just basically as high as a kite and passed out on the back seat. His name's Jade, and they basically find him, and he basically finally wakes up, and he's kind of been sort of tied to, restrained on a bed so he can't hurt himself, or doesn't get, well, if he does wake up and can't wander off, but obviously he's like freaking out. So yeah, he's then basically sort of brought into the story. Episode 4 develops on from that, and And so they basically explain to this guy, Jade, what's going on. He initially thinks it's all a big joke, that it's a bit like his friend who was murdered last week. As basically, it's a bit like a sort of escape room or mystery set up, and they're all actors, and he just thinks it's one big joke and it's hilarious. And he's off to find clues to find how to get out of the town, all that kind of thing, really not understanding that obviously everything they're saying is real. So he goes off and is basically an arse to people because he just thinks it's all a game. At the same time, we find out more about the other family. We find out that basically, and then I think is part of the reason why the daughter's not really in a good place, the mother, that the parents are actually going to get divorced. And this was like one last hurrah family trip before they announced that, but the girl already knew that they're getting divorced. We find out that basically they had a younger son, Thomas, who died. We don't know why or natural causes or what happened. But the little brother Ethan mentions this, and it's touched on by the parents. But what's quite interesting is that the dad takes Ethan to the diner for breakfast and having pancakes. And there's a character called Victor, who's basically been in this town the longest by everybody. He was a young boy, maybe sort of 12, 13, when he came to the town or was in the town, and he's now maybe 50, 60s. And he's very sort of simple. You know, he's obviously been through something very traumatic. He's very insular, but you know, sort of comes across as harmless, but a bit weird. So people are a little bit wary of him. And he goes and talks to Ethan in the diner and asks him. And as I said last week, we basically find out that Ethan's seeing this little boy in a white suit. But only Ethan can see him. But we find out Victor could also see him when he was younger, but he's not seen him since he was a kid. And he basically, for years, has been like, as from a child upwards, he's been doing all these crayon pictures of what he saw, and shows the picture to Ethan, going, "Is this the boy that you're seeing?" And Ethan's like, "Yes, it is." And then the dad basically sees Victor talking to Ethan and goes absolutely ballistic, like proper real overreaction, and sort of drags Victor out and saying, you know, "Stay away from my son, do this, do that." But real overreaction, because Victor's just sitting there talking to him. And and Ethan's like, "Dad, leave him alone. What? He's you know, he's nice. He's my friend. What are you doing?" So the dad kind of calms down. So then later on, Victor goes back to their house and sees Ethan and says, like, "Do you want to come on a quest with me? Let's go find the boy." And they go into the woods together. And basically they do see the boy, but the parents obviously realize that Ethan's not there. They basically got into a row and didn't notice that Ethan had gone off. And basically grab hold of, basically looking for Ethan. There's then these there's like wild dogs in the woods, and they're sort of barking at the parents. And a gun goes off, and it's basically Victor scaring the dogs away. And again, the parents are like going mad, which you kind of get. But again, the dad's like on the verge, like trying to take Victor out. And they're like, "Look, he's got a gun. He's got a gun. What are you doing?" And Victor goes, "I'm not a bad person. I'm not hurt. I wouldn't hurt him." And he kind of runs off. And then the next thing we see, he's basically back at Colony House digging graves. And he kind of ends with him saying, "Well, I want to get a head start this time." So the fact that the boy's back kind of hints to something. We don't know what. The other thing we find out that's really important is there's a map in the sheriff's office of America, and there's all these pins across it. And it's basically explained to Jade by Kenny, the deputy. These are all the points where we all came from. So what we're finding out is they're all on different roads, different journeys, different states across America, but somehow all end up in this town. So it's not like they're in the same location and they're on a certain road and end up here. They're being picked from across America and end up in this town. So again, as ever with these sort of shows, we're getting more questions than answers. so far I'm still enjoying it. There's enough there's enough sort of, it's moving on enough pace that I'm still interested. I just really hope that, like I say, it doesn't go off a cliff, that they do actually know what the answers are. They do actually know where this is going. And we don't get a stupid lost scenario. So anyway, yeah, I'm sticking with it. I'm still enjoying it. See where next week the madness takes us. So the last thing I watched this week was Le Bray. I think that's been out in the States for a while. We've just got it here in the UK because we've just recently got Paramount Plus. So I've done a bit of a free trial, see what's on there. And Le Bray, I guess, is a little bit this mystery box stuff. It does answer itself quite quickly. So it all starts off in the place. Is it La Brea? Actually, La Brea in California, not La Brea. In Los Angeles, and you've got a mum, Eve, her daughter Izzy, and her son Josh in the car. She's driving them to school. You kind of get the impression she's a bit of a smother, but then you basically find out why. There was an accident. Her daughter lost her leg, so she's a bit of a helicopter mum right now. But basically they're driving along, and then this massive great sinkhole opens up, and it's like huge, like sort of like, I don't know, mile wide or something, and God knows how many feet down. And they get out the car, they're running. This little girl falls over. The son picks up the little girl. But as he picks up the little girl, some guy knocks into him, and he bangs his head on the car and falls down. So the mum stops, turns around, looking for Josh, the boy, and basically sees him get up, about to start running, and then as the sinkhole's opening up, the road's going, and he basically drops into the sinkhole. The mum goes running back. It's a bit stupid, really, but and then goes over the sinkhole as well. But Izzy manages to sort of catch her hand, and the mum's screaming at her to run, get away, and she's like, "No, I'm not going to leave you." So basically, the mum takes the daughter's hand off her arm, and she falls into the sinkhole, and the daughter's left. So there's obviously multiple people have all fallen down the sinkhole, cars, part of shops, basically anything that was in the road, and now all gone down this sinkhole. The government obviously get there quite quickly and start cordoning it all off. And basically everybody's sort of told that nobody could survive that kind of fall. Everybody's dead. This introduces Izzy and Josh's dad, Gavin. We find out quite quickly that Gavin was in the Air Force. He was a pilot, like a test pilot. And a few years ago, he basically crashed his plane. And then after the crash, he starts having these visions. He keeps seeing this place. He goes to multiple doctors. They can't find anything wrong with him. He starts, having a bit of a breakdown and depression, and starts drinking a lot. And obviously this basically puts pressure on the marriage, and that's how we basically find out, hence why he's not with the mum and the kids anymore, because he just kind of lost it, and was drinking and lost his job in the Air Force. And he's sort of been suffering with depression since, and just doesn't understand what's going on with him. Then we cut to inside the sinkhole, and then basically see that people are still alive, and they wake up, and they're kind of in this like clearing, and it's just like forest and trees around them everywhere. So you're like, oh, where are they? Are they in another dimension? What's going on? And you basically find out very quickly that the government know they're alive, and they know that they've gone to this place. As we say, we found out there's been other sinkholes. So the government know where they are, and basically send a drone down to try and get footage. And it's kind of blue light, and as soon as it passes through this blue light, the drone, it's almost like going for electromagnetic pulse or something, because all the electrics just go, and the drone crashes. And then Gavin gets a sort of flash in his head, seeing that his wife's alive. He sees the drone. So you're like, is he sort of psychic? How is he connected to this place? How does he know? How can he see them? he manages to go to the government and the doctor that are heading up the sinkhole thing, and basically tells them, look, I can see this place. I can see your drone. It's the tail number XXX, because obviously they just think he's a whack job, as you would. Yeah, so we kind of go from there, and they basically get him involved and basically transport. They basically tell him that, yeah, we know they're alive down there. We don't know how to get them out. And you know, this has happened before. And so it kind of goes along. I've watched the whole thing, and very quickly it does transpire that basically what this sinkhole does, or this rift, is like a rift in time, and basically they've gone back in time to 10,000 BC. So they're still in Los Angeles, but in 10,000 BC. You know, there's lots of sort of plot contrivances, I guess. You know, they get attacked by wolves and saber-toothed tigers and things like that. And luckily, an ambulance fell through the sinkhole so they can get some antibiotics and medical equipment to save the main characters' lives. You know, that kind of stuff is a bit, you know. But again, overall, you know, at least it does tell you quite quickly what's going on. I think it was pretty obvious when you start seeing the animals or extinct animals that they've gone back in time, or, you know, it's like, is it a journey to the center of the earth type thing? But they've gone back in time. So, and then we basically transpire, they find this village. Obviously, other explorers, when the other sinkholes from the government have gone to this place, they've been missing for 3 years. So they think in this village. And we can sort of find out that there's some, say, other people there. And we first see this little boy. And what basically transpires, yeah, big spoilers here. So again, if you want to go watch it, come back to this review. That this little boy is actually Gavin, her husband. So there's a whole thing that basically there's another rift to 1988, and the kid's got to go through it so he can then grow up in our time, so the kids can be born, and if he doesn't go through it, the kids will die because they will never have existed. But you know, it's quite a good twist, quite twisted, and that's basically he's not having visions, he's having memories, and that's why he knows they're alive, etc. And it kind of ends another sinkhole. A small one opens up in Seattle. Him and his daughter, and one of the other characters who basically was meant to go through the rift with Gavin originally, because she's now in our present, but didn't go through in the past. So I'm not quite sure how she's still in our present. Bit of a paradox. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But anyway, they all jump in because they're going to try and get them back, even though they're in Seattle. They're in Los Angeles. They've got to try and get from prehistoric Seattle to prehistoric Los Angeles without, you know, any transport or a car and creatures. And they're like, yeah, we'll figure it out. It's fine. But this is our only shot to go get them. So some of the stuff's a bit like, what? And I will say some of the acting is atrocious. The girl that plays the daughter, Izzy, is shockingly bad. Absolutely terrible. She's definitely like the weak link in it. Yeah, every time she's sort of on screen, it's like, oh man, this is painful. But overall, I mean, the premise is good. It's an interesting premise. It has been renewed. There is going to be a season 2. So again, I tend not to bother watching these things if you know it's been cancelled, because you're never going to get the answers. But there is going to be a season 2. I believe it starts in September in the States. I don't know whether we'll get it at the same time. But I think it's worth a watch, you know, but it is very much in the same sort of vein as From that I just described. And I said, you know, if you like sort of Wayward Pines and Twin Peaks and Lost and those sort of things, you'll probably like this show. Again, can they hold it together? Can they keep it interesting for a season 2 or 3 or 4? I don't know. I mean, obviously they've got to try and get them back somehow, but there's only so many weeks you can watch them, you know, fighting saber-toothed tigers and going through, you know, trying to grow food and things like that. But anyway, it was enjoyable. I enjoyed it. The acting, some of the acting is hit and miss. The CGI is woeful. But you know, it's a TV show at the end of the day. There's enough there to keep me watching, keep me entertained. And like I say, I will check out season 2. Whether it will maintain the pace or the interest, I don't know. But obviously, as soon as it comes out here in the UK, I will let you know. So yeah, that's what I've been watching. I also watched Prey, the new Predator film. I've done a review on that. That does have spoilers, so it's on my channel, so go check that out if you want to know what I thought of Prey. It's getting very mixed reviews, I will say. I think it's going to be a bit Marmite. You either like it or you don't. And I sort of say that in my review. But go watch the review and you'll know what I thought of that. Yeah, so I'll have to find something new to review for next week, as there's no Orville. I'm going to try and do a whole season review, a separate review for that on the Orville, and wax lyrical about that, because Matt Cathard, I like it quite a lot. But I think it deserves a whole season review, so I'm going to try and get that done this week. Yeah, and find something new to watch and review, and obviously I'll come back with an update on the season finale of For All Mankind, and where we're getting to with From, and if it's still holding my interest or is it starting to waver a bit. But yeah, that's this week's Nerdy Roundup. And I look forward to speaking to you again next week with my thoughts and views on the nerdy world. So take care. Bye-bye.